Picture a woman going about an ordinary day 4,000 years ago. She's grinding grain, tending a fire, caring for children exactly like she would on any other day. Except today, there's no pharmacy nearby, no packaging, nothing manufactured specifically for what her body is doing. Just whatever material she can find, fold, or fashion by hand, and somehow it has to work every single month for the rest of her life. Here's the thing that surprises most people. Ancient women weren't caught off guard by this. They built real deliberate solutions, thousands of years before anyone patented anything close to it. But some of the most commonly repeated facts about those solutions turn out to be shakier than they sound. And untangling what's real from what's marketing, copy tells you almost as much about how this topic gets treated as the actual history does. Let's start with ancient Egypt. The Kahun Gynaecological Papyrus, dated to around 1825 BCE, is the oldest surviving medical text focused specifically on women's health, found by archaeologist Flinders Petrie in 1889. It describes fertility treatments, pregnancy tests, and contraceptive recipes, including one calling for a mixture of crocodile dung, honey, and a type of salt, inserted as what doctors call a pessary. That's real, documented ancient gynecological practice. Whether Egyptian women specifically used papyrus fibers as menstrual absorbents, the way it's often repeated online, is less certain. Papyrus doesn't actually absorb liquid particularly well, and the clearest ancient evidence points more toward pessaries for contraception and treatment than a purpose-built menstrual product. Now here's where it gets genuinely interesting. You've probably heard the claim that the Greek physician Hippocrates, writing around the 5th century BCE, described women using lint wrapped around a piece of wood as an early tampon. That specific claim has been repeated across health websites, articles, and product marketing for years. But classical historian Helen King, who wrote her doctoral research specifically on ancient Greek menstruation, traced that claim back to its actual origin. It appears to come from Tampax's own marketing materials, not from any surviving Hippocratic text. Nobody has ever produced the original passage. It's a modern claim wearing an ancient costume, and it spread because it sounded plausible enough that nobody double-checked it. What Greek women actually did is less flashy but better supported. Wool was one of the most available absorbent materials in the ancient Mediterranean world, already being processed constantly for clothing, and there's reasonable historical basis for it being used, folded, or wrapped as external protection during menstruation. Roman women followed a similar pattern, also relying on wool since it was the second most absorbent natural material available to them after cotton, which was far less common in the region at the time. Beyond the Mediterranean, solutions were shaped entirely by whatever the local environment provided. In parts of equatorial Africa, women used rolled grass mats, naturally absorbent and easy to replace. In colder climates, including among various Native American communities, materials like moss, buffalo skin, and rabbit fur were used, chosen specifically for warmth as well as absorbency. In ancient China, sand or dried grass was packed tightly and wrapped in cloth to form a functional disposable pad. None of these solutions required outside instruction. Each region solved the same basic problem independently, using the materials that were actually sitting around them. And it wasn't purely practical. Menstruation carried enormous social and religious weight across the ancient world, and that weight cut in very different directions depending on where you were. The Roman writer Pliny the Elder, in his 1st century natural history, claimed that a menstruating woman could sour wine, dull mirrors, blunt knife blades, and kill entire swarms of bees just by walking near them. These weren't fringe beliefs. Pliny was one of the most widely read authorities of the ancient world, and claims like his helped shape centuries of Western thought that treated menstruation as something dangerous, almost supernatural, rather than a normal biological process. In several cultures, this belief system led to formal seclusion practices, separate huts or tents where menstruating women were required to stay apart from the rest of the community, sometimes framed as ensuring ritual purity, sometimes as protecting others from a perceived danger. Not every culture treated it that way. In some indigenous societies, menstruation seclusion periods were framed less as punishment and more as an earned, temporarily sacred state, tied to fertility and spiritual power rather than contamination. The material solution, whatever cloth or absorbent material was used, was often secondary to the much larger question every ancient society had to answer for itself. Was this something to hide, or something to structure daily life around? So here's what actually holds up. Real ancient women, across wildly different continents and climates, independently engineered functional solutions using wool, grass, moss, sand, and animal hide, adapting whatever their environment gave them into something that worked well enough to get through the month. Some of the specific stories we tell about that history, like the Hippocrates tampon claim, turn out to be modern inventions dressed up as ancient wisdom. But the underlying truth is sturdier than any single myth. This is one of the oldest, most universal problems in human history. And long before anyone manufactured a solution and sold it back to us, women had already been solving it themselves, generation after generation, with whatever they had on hand.